on the Stables Network. Take it away.
You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, themichigansportstruthpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like the show's two Facebook pages, one of them at Michigan Sports Truth, and the other created by the Stables Network. Go to the Stables Network's website, primetimewiththestablesnetwork.com, like the Stables Network on Facebook, and follow it on Twitter and Periscope at Stables Network, and on Instagram at The Stables Network. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there.
You can call in at 1-415-340-4848, extension 822, or Zoom meeting ID 376-916-986. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram. And follow Ed Smith at EdSmith313 on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram. Got lots to talk about. Ed, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, Taylor. I hope you're doing fine yourself as well.
Good. So lots to talk about in terms of the coronavirus, plus lots of NFL draft stuff to talk about, including the Lions, the Michigan Wolverines, and the Michigan State Spartans, even the Chippewas, Broncos, and the Eagles. Plus, we'll touch on the Red Wings and some U of M team Dr. Robert Anderson stuff. Dr. Robert Anderson being set. That stuff being settled, the University of Michigan hoping to have it settled. But also, and finally, we have our TMS-TP story vault. Another one from Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag. Ausmus fired when it doesn't matter any longer, about the Tigers firing then manager Brad Ausmus 3 years too late. That was September 22nd, 2017. But first off, here's what we know at the moment in terms of coronavirus sports news. First off, in our state, the Red Wings have sourced sanitation devices from around the NHL for General Motors as the factory was restarted to make masks for workers. In the NHL, nationally, an unnamed team was planning workouts. It was reportedly preparing to start holding informal sessions May 15th. Then, according to TSN, the league was reportedly discussing the idea of delaying next season by 2 months to December, with the Stanley Cup playoffs running into July 2021. And finally, team facilities could open in May, according to a report, mid to late May, that is, if they, quote, continue to trend favorably, unquote. In the NFL, Commissioner Roger Goodell wants his salary reduced to zero to furlough teams during the pandemic. Tom McShay recovered from coronavirus, so he couldn't make it to the draft. The league is also considering delaying the start of the season, including as well as eliminating bye weeks in the Pro Bowl and moving the Super Bowl date to sometime probably later in February, I guess. Plus, the NBA is looking to start team workouts on May 8th for limited use of facilities in states with eased stay-at-home orders, and the NBA could also consider playing at Walt Disney World if safe enough. In Major League Baseball, the Baseball Hall of Fame was postponed until 2021, and the MLB draft has been announced it will reportedly be virtual, just like the NFL draft. And I think the NHL draft and the NBA draft should all go virtual, shouldn't it, Ed?
One moment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I still got more stuff. Got two more notes here in terms of coronavirus sports news. The NCAA group supports a proposal to allow athletes to sign some endorsement contracts as long as the schools are not involved in payments. And in the MLS, the FIFA medical chief does not want any games played until September at the earliest due to the coronavirus. So still lots of news to talk about in terms of the coronavirus affecting sports as it does every week and every day. Well, almost every day, but still every week in general. So, Ed, what do you make of it?
Well, I think it's a matter of between governors across the state, slowly but surely, in their own methods and ways, trying to find ways of reopening up in their own methods, because, again, this wasn't exactly an official national government shutdown that was declared. This was a matter of a state-by-state process in regards to how they responded to this COVID-19 issue exploding. So with various states slowly but surely opening up, some more than others, some choosing to still stay within the national stay-at-home order, or not national, but stay with their own, conducting with their own stay-at-home order, particularly here in Michigan, of course, where Governor Whitmer did make her executive order about extending to and possibly even beyond May 15th, obviously with some restrictions involved being lifted on some outdoor activities, just golfing, for instance. So that's how you're seeing with each league garnering their own reaction to how each state is trying to find their own way of opening up. So there's that method going on. And also in terms of combat sports, WWE is still going on right as schedule, as if nothing is being interrupted. Obviously, taking full advantage of being in the state of Florida once it was established that essential sports will be considered an essential business. So there's one aspect of that. As in terms of UFC, at the very least for UFC 249, as of this recording, as of this episode, there is no official announcement or determination of where the location of the UFC, the newly rebranded UFC 249 card on May 9th is going to be. It is still likely to be featured as the main event of Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight championship. Winner will face Khabib later on in the fall. With Amanda Nunes now being unavailable for that May 9th date, Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz becomes your de facto co-main event, as well as amongst other fights on that card, trying to bolster that fight as possible. But for now, those are the two biggest fights for that card. So while that's being sorted out, Dana White is still promising to reimburse, well, not really reimburse, but to making sure that the fights that were scheduled, that were supposed to take place or near around April the 15th, not the 15th, but the 18th, which was the original date for UFC 249, the date that Dana was trying to reshuffle around to possibly get fighters to fight on an island somewhere. Dana is still looking to try and honor that aspect for some international fighters that may not be able to get in the U.S. for some reason, or in various states across the U.S. So there's that going on as well. And as far as I can tell, that's about it from my aspect of finding the latest COVID-19 reaction updates from various sports on my end.
Yeah. One note that I found real strange is Major League Baseball was considering 3 10-team divisions. That was a report from USA Today. Now, here's what's wrong. Here's what's definitely wrong with that, clearly. There can't be 3 divisions, because otherwise there would be 3 teams playing. There can only be 2. that's
Right, not to mention in terms of seating and possible, buys or bye weeks not being able to be used. Yeah, that would have been probably very too confusing.
yeah. That's what just gave my mind like a spin around. Made me feel dizzy a little bit, but that's just wrong. They can't do that. Hey, Blake, you want to mute yourself, please? Thank you. But anyway, this was a report that I came across, and it drove me crazy. But anyway, that's pretty much it for coronavirus sports news. Now on to the Lions. They did very well in the draft, at least through the first 4 rounds. But first of all, they drafted their elite cornerback, Jeff Okudah from Ohio State at number 3. He was a first-team All-American and All-Big Team American. His performance in college was just darn right, but darn elite, period. He can jump very high. He's very tall. He can run very fast. He can recover very nicely whenever he falls, and he covers opposing receivers very, very well. Now, from what I can tell, some may argue and complain that the Lions could have traded down from their number 3 overall pick, which projected to be Jeff Okudah for other draft picks, because fans and media, including the guys down there at 97 won the ticket in Southfield, wanted some defensive linemen, which I understand, but Jeff Okudah was definitely too good to pass up. I'm grading this an A.
Yeah, as I mentioned on Periscope when live on draft night, when the pick went down, and when I shared my reaction and that instant analysis to you, Taylor, I explained that this was the best corner that was available in the entire draft. And I've often mentioned to you, Taylor, probably on air, probably off air for quite a while, how the Lions really needed to find some help in taking care of their secondary. Granted, you can argue they probably took a step back in that method by A, trading away Quandre Diggs, and then B, this offseason trading Darius Slay.
Yep.
I could counter to that argument by saying that, yes, while it probably was a, somewhat one step forward, 2 steps back type of logic, I can't say that, at least in the case of Darius Slay, Slay did not want to be here anymore. Slay did not like Matt Patricia. Slay did not like the direction of how things were going. And Slay was flat out unhappy and wanted to change the scenery. I'm not going to bash him for that. That is his opinion. That is his belief. That he's doing what he feels is best for his career. And I guess I think for Slay's case, as much as he probably loved to remain here because he did love the fans of Detroit, regarding in terms of working with Patricia, knowing things were not going to get better, I think it was just best for all parties involved, especially when you consider that they did get Desmond Trufant in the offseason. So knowing that the writing was on the wall, Slay was dealt, and I think it was just done for all parties involved. And let's not forget that in regards to using assets from that trade, I think it was with one of those picks or whatever that the Lions got in exchange for giving Slay to the Eagles. They used that to trade up. I want to say to get it wasn't to get either, their first 2 top picks. It was probably get one of their 3rd or 4th picks overall in the draft that they selected. But the point being is that's what the benefit was of using that trade to get you the pieces that you felt needed to help complete your roster. Now, in terms of Okudah, I mentioned before last week, I'll mention it right here now for those that didn't hear me last week. If you take Okudah, place him on the opposite side of the field from Desmond Trufant, and then take Justin Coleman and put him back in the nickel position, in the slot position where he's most comfortable and thrives the best at, I think that on paper should give you some more, a little bit of a more confident feel of how the secondary is going to perform. When you also consider the fact that guys like Will Harris and Tracy Coleman, who I felt also made plays for the secondary last year in terms of getting turnovers, not necessarily getting off the field on third down, but forcing turnovers at opportune times and moments. You take that, you add in the potential and the talent of Okudah, and you do your best to nurture that over the next couple seasons. If Quinn and Patricia get that chance, you could have a very nice looking unit, very nice looking group for the Lions in terms of that defense. Personally, I would be honest in telling you that I would have been tempted to take Isaiah Simmons. I would have been also, tempted if there was an available good offer to trade down. But again, I get why they didn't trade down in the end, because A, you need a willing team to tangle with you to make a deal. And B, who's to say if you take that risk and make the trade, who's to say that Okudah or Simmons is going to be there for you past, say, pick number 6? So I understand what the Lions did. They did what they had to do. Plus, the Dolphins, they didn't have to do anything too drastic because they ended up getting the guy they wanted anyway in Tua. They didn't have to lift a finger. So I think that's called an example of, not being too hasty with the reaction. I think the Lions did what they did there. So I very much like the Okudah pick. I also quite like the pick that was made for DeAndre Swift, because you need a complement back to go with Kerryon Johnson. I'm not talking about signing one-year retreads of old veterans. You need younger legs to go with Kerryon as his duo, as his running mate, pardon the pun. Also, in terms of taking the load off him, so to speak, so, the less touches and carries that Kerryon may feel he doesn't have to try and get or force himself to get, the less of a chance that he'll be injured long-term again. And with a more competent running game, obviously, it means less of a hassle of a workload for Matthew Stafford to deal. So when you notice that one runs in conjunction with the other and try to make this a fine oil-tuned machine, you realize what the Lions are trying to do here. They feel their secondary was much more closer to being complete by making the Okudah pick. That's what they did. Took the best player available, and it was at a position of need. In terms of DeAndre Swift, you got arguably the best running back in the entire draft class, because DeAndre Swift, in terms of what he did at Georgia, and Georgia is known as a staple, as a factory of running backs, from Herschel Walker to Todd Gurley to Sony Michel to Nick Chubb, no Sean Moreno, you get the gist. So to see amongst all those backs, DeAndre Swift, I think he had the highest average of yards per carry, or whatever the case that was, in amongst all of those running backs. And that's a who's who of names and talent that played at that position at that school. So I think the Lions got themselves a keeper in that one. I mentioned possibility of if you're going to get a running back, maybe a J.K. Dobbins. This is even better. And the Lions didn't have to do anything. They just fell right into their laps. Same in terms of, not necessarily falling in their laps, but making the moves that you had to make, such as trading up to get, Big Logan, the offensive lineman from Kentucky. Now, I know people will think, he played at Kentucky, only allowed 1 sack. What's the difference? What kind of competition did he face? Well, people seem to forget that Kentucky is in the SEC, which means you go up against the likes of the Alabamas, of the Georgias, of the LSUs, of the Auburns, of the Floridas, and so on. So to face that caliber of talent year in and year out and give up only 1 sack is very impressive. Same thing with the, Jonathan Simmons, I think, or not Jonathan Simmons, but
Isaiah Simmons.
I was thinking about the OT, the old lineman that they took from OSU.
Oh yeah, Jonah Jack. Wait, that's not it. That's Jason Cornell. Round 7.
That was Jonah something.
Yeah, Jonah Jackson from. I didn't get the university, but. He was Okudah's teammate at Ohio State. Yeah, Julian Okwara.
Right.
He's a defensive end.
That's the line. Yeah, that's the linebacker from defensive end from Notre Dame. I was talking about the offensive lineman that they got from Ohio State.
There was in a trade up with the Colts.
I don't know if it was a trade up or not, or it was one, or it was just their selection. But anyways, regardless, I digress. They wanted to strengthen their offensive line. They
I
did
got the
that
list.
I appreciate it. They bolstered their offensive line of trying to rectify that by making the picks that they did.
Yep. So here are the offensive linemen they got. They traded up with the Colts to get offensive guard Jonah Jackson at 75 overall.
Yeah, that was pick.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the trade I was referring to.
Yes, Jonah Jackson. Yeah, not Simmons. It's Jonah Jackson. So yeah.
Correction. Thank you. So those were the picks that the Lions felt they had to do. And I think in terms of fixing and filling as many needs as possible, you're not going to fill every need in one draft. Understandably so. I understand why people felt the need to get a defensive lineman or a pass rusher. Trust me, I understand completely. But I also know the fact that how bad the secondary was last season. That was with Darius Slay, mind you. They couldn't get off the field on third down. They gave up big play after big play after big play. And I didn't see that many interceptions. I saw some fumbles being caused a lot. I saw a pick or two, but not a constant threat or presence in the secondary as I would have liked to see. So, in terms of improving that side of the field and knowing what you did to help complete your offense, I didn't mind. I thought that the Lions did an okay to adequate to pretty good job at the very least with this draft. I liked the choices. I thought they made sense, and at the spots and the positions that they need to go at. I thought it was just the right moves to make. So, for once, I'm not going to bag on Bob Quinn for having a subpar, mediocre draft. Again, obviously, that's probably instant analysis. More so speaking, we still have to see the end result. How will they perform on the field with the coaches, with the players, with the system? How will they step up or how will they falter? So that still remains to be seen. But in terms of what they did, filling out what they need to fill out and taking care of what was necessary, I thought the job was well done by Bob Quinn and crew. So probably won't get a solid A, but I'd give it a high quality B plus for what they did in the draft.
Yep. Overall, I'd give that a B plus as well. They did hire two defensive tackles, John Tennessee from Utah at 197 overall in round 6, and like I mentioned before, defensive tackle Jason Cornell from Ohio State, 235 overall in round 7. I believe that was the third Ohio State Buckeye that the Lions got. Plus the undrafted guys. Hunter Bryant, a tight end from Washington. Long snapper Stephen Wordle from Ohio State. Don Molbeck still re-signed for another year. I can't believe that. Defensive back Bobby Price from Norfolk State. Safety Jalen Elliott from Notre Dame. Safety Jeremiah Dinson from Auburn. Fullback Luke Sellers from South Dakota State. Defensive back Jeremiah Dinson from Auburn. And punter Aaron Sipas from Auburn. So, yeah. Luke Sellers from South Dakota State. Dinson from Jeremiah Dinson from Auburn. Yeah. Defensive back somebody from Auburn. And punter Aaron Sipas from Auburn. Now, for the Michigan Wolverines, Cesar Ruiz was picked up by the New Orleans Saints at 24 overall. Josh Uche at linebacker and edge rusher was drafted by the Patriots of all teams at 60th overall. Ben Bredesen at offensive lineman at 143 to the Baltimore Ravens. Outside linebacker Khalil Hudson at 162 to the Washington Redskins. Defensive end Michael Dana at 177 to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl champions. Wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones at 185 to the Cleveland Browns. That's strange.
Yeah, that gives me Braylon Edwards, David Terrell vibes. I hope he does better than those two did.
Yeah, Braylon Edwards didn't perform too well, and he was whining like a little you know what. Anyway, John Runyon at offensive guard at 192 to the Green Bay Packers. Safety Josh Metellus at 205 to the Minnesota Vikings. Linebacker Jordan Glasgow at 213 to the Indianapolis Colts. Tight end Sean McKeon undrafted to the Dallas Cowboys. Quarterback Lavert Hill to the Kansas City Chiefs undrafted. And finally, wide receiver, this has nothing to do with the draft, but wide receiver Tariq Black has transferred to the Texas Longhorns. But congrats to those who have been drafted and signed undrafted.
There, I think he.
Yep, go ahead.
Seen as a big target to be used for next season in the offense, so that is a noticeable loss. Notable loss for sure. Did you mention anything about Shea Patterson being drafted or being undrafted pickup? By any chance?
No, I don't. No, I don't think so. I've not even heard about Shea Patterson being picked up by an NFL team in any way, shape, or form.
Right. So, I don't know what's next for him. I don't know if he's going to look at take a job at another football league per se, because the XFL, they've closed shop again. The AFF is kaput. Maybe the CFL could be an option if football is there for him. In terms of playing in football, I don't know if that's the case, or maybe a potential coaching staff possibility.
Yep. So, those are the possibilities.
Also favors by what performed at Michigan, but he did not do himself favors for how he performed at Michigan. But you hope to see a team give him some type of chance.
Yep, that's true. So, that's gonna. The Michigan State Spartans. Before we get to the Michigan State Spartans, there was a story that I read from, I believe, let's see, I'm opening, ESPN, that the University of Michigan was hoping to settle the Dr. Robert Anderson abuse lawsuits. This was, I believe, yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. The University of Michigan hopes to settle lawsuits from hundreds of people who say they were sexually abused by a sports doctor, that's Robert Anderson, that is, who worked at the university for decades, officials said yesterday. The school aims to develop a process outside the court system to provide, quote, more certain, faster relief, unquote, in addressing misconduct claims against Dr. Robert Anderson, according to comments from Board of Regents Chair Ron Weiser and school president Mark Schlizzle in a news release. The goal also is to maintain the privacy of victims who have come forward, the officials said. Anderson worked at the university from the mid-1960s through 2003. He died in 2008, as we all know it. Schlizzle said, quote, the university is eager to continue this dialogue as it assesses over the next few months the best approach to resolving these claims. The university recognizes the harms he caused and is committed to developing a fair, just, timely, and efficient resolution process, one that does not require drawn-out litigation, unquote. Campus police began looking into Anderson in 2018 after a former student athlete wrote to athletic director Ward Manuel about being sexually abused by Anderson during medical exams in the early 1970s. So, again, that same cold case, but this is even further developing news here.
It is, and I think it's also a matter of the school wanting this to go away as quickly as possible. But the damage has been done in terms of knowing the details, knowing the facts that are there. We mentioned it last week of how the mistake that Ward Manuel made in terms of letting university but university lawyers know heads up in advance of before proper procedures were filed in terms of making advancements in the case. That was a potential no-no that he did. So when you factor that in, knowing how ugly this is already, you can probably understand why they want to make settlements. Yeah, I understand protecting the identities of those that were involved, that were afflicted as a result of Dr. Anderson. But also, this is kind of your own doing as well, U of M. you likely have had chance after chance over the years to have known about what Dr. Anderson did. We're giving reports or at least some warnings or issues of what was out there, and for some reason, one reason or another, you choose not to follow up on it. So that responsibility falls and bears upon you, and with doing the right thing or doing the proper and noteworthy thing to do. So I don't have a problem with the criticism that they've received. I think it's justified, and the best we can hope for is obviously A, something like this never happens again, but B, there needs to be a better procedural outline stated and flat out established in terms of, hey, if something like this or something similar to this were to start popping up or creeping up again, it needs to get shut down and fast and quickly as possible. So we don't have another Nassar. We don't have another Anderson. We don't have another Baylor. We don't have another Ohio State. We don't have another Penn State. The end game goal around here should be to stop this period, or at least bring it down as significantly as possible. So that all depends on whether or not the schools are willing to play along and go along with what is the right thing here. And a matter of the schools themselves not enabling and empowering these types of people and predators in their own institutions. So learning lessons should be felt as a whole around as a result of all this, for sure.
Yep, definitely. There's even more. Attorney Mike Cox, whose firm is suing the University of Michigan in federal district court in Washtenaw County Circuit Court, said he thinks the lawsuits are driving the university's efforts to avoid public and court scrutiny. Cox said, quote, "It is only in a courtroom where survivors and the public can learn the truth. It is in a courtroom where survivors can compel witnesses through subpoenas to tell the full truth of Anderson's abuse and U of M's cover-up of that abuse," unquote.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's another reason why they're trying to get these settlements done. They do not want all of this coming out in gory details in public court.
Yep, bingo. Last week, the Anderson survivors legal team said it filed 20-plus notices of intent to sue the school, its board, and Anderson's estate. One of the group's clients, Robert Stone, was the first to speak publicly about allegations of abuse against Anderson. John Manning, attorney, said, quote, "Our clients sincerely hope this is a step in the right direction by the university to provide full justice to the hundreds of Anderson victims," unquote. Manning added, quote, "On the other hand, this could be a Catholic bishop-style plan to provide public relations cover to the university while providing little transparency and fractional justice to the survivors," Manley added. "We hope that's not the case. Time will tell," unquote. So the university has acknowledged some campus employees were aware of accusations against Anderson before the 2018 complaint. The school has started an independent investigation into the claims, which date back as far as the 1960s. That's way back in time. Talk about one cold case after another, and so on and so forth. Yikes.
Who knows? Maybe this could possibly unearth more cases. You don't know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about in Michigan. This could be at any other schools. This could give other schools a reason to look back into their own stuff.
Yeah. Anderson had worked there for a long time before he retired in 2003, five years to his demise. Wow. Many of the, yep. And I believe that's, and there's one more. The revelations at Michigan echo other high-profile allegations and investigations of sexual abuse made by patients of sports doctors at Michigan State University and Ohio State University. Yeah, that's the same thing. So that's about it. Anything to add?
No, that's about it on that end.
All right. So let's get back to the NFL draft. Moving on with the Michigan State Spartans. Some of their players got picked up by NFL teams. Only 2 of them got drafted. I believe 7 of them got signed undrafted. But first, let's go to get to the 2 drafted players from the Spartans. Quarterback Josiah Scott at 137 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the other one, defensive end Kenny Wilkes at 225 to the Minnesota Vikings.
Ooh. I think both picks could be very good fits. I think Wilkes fits in very well with that Vikings defense. I think Everson Griffin is still there. He could be a very good mentor for Wilkes to learn under as he comes into the league. I also like where Scott ended up in. I think Jacksonville, they need a quarterback. Obviously, they got rid of Jalen Ramsey. They traded him to the Rams. So that was a big hole in their defense that needed filling. So maybe this is where they felt Josiah Scott came into play or did the best to fill that need. So those two noteworthy picks I like just on paper because I think in terms of fit, in terms of scheme, position of need, those are the right picks respectively for those two teams, for those two players.
Yep. And then the undrafted 7 that were picked up by NFL teams, starting with wide receiver Darrell Stewart to the Green Bay Packers. They signed him. Wide receiver Cody White, undrafted, signs with the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Defensive tackle Mike Parashuk to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now the Las Vegas Raiders. It used to be Oakland. Now it's the Las Vegas Raiders. Offensive lineman Tyler Rigby to the Minnesota Vikings. Quarterback Brian Lewerke to the New England Patriots. That's a big signing right there.
Best of luck.
Yep. Yeah, since Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay. Think about that. So, 2 more. Linebacker Joe Bocci to the New Orleans Saints and defensive tackle Raekwon Williams to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now to the rest of the MAC, the rest of the state of Michigan. The Central Michigan Chippewas only got one undrafted running back, Jonathan Ward, to the Arizona Cardinals. Just one guy they got in the NFL draft as an undrafted free agent, Mike Chippewas. Oh, man. What in the world happened to their player development system all of a sudden? Yikes.
I don't know. It's like they got they caught lightning in the bottle with Antonio Brown, and then that was it.
Yeah. Then they had coaches like Dan Enos and John Bonamigo. They probably didn't. But I'm not sure. But this year they did not end up with much. Probably not with much of a senior class. That would be my only excuse or explanation. But I don't even know. Western Michigan Broncos undrafted tight end Giovanni Ricci went to the Carolina Panthers. Running back Levante Bellamy to the Denver Broncos, and center Luke Juriga to the Philadelphia Eagles. In the Eastern Michigan Eagles, only 2 undrafted, and that's it. Offensive tackle Steven Nielsen to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and cornerback Kevin McGill to the Los Angeles Chargers, owned by Dean Spanos. Yep. So there you have it. That's all That's all for the college teams in the state of Michigan in terms of the NFL draft.
Well, congratulations to all the players that were listed and mentioned that got that chance, whether your name was called in the draft or not. You, at the very least, you were picked up by a team afterwards. Obviously, with everything that's going on as of late, they weren't able to properly celebrate and enjoy this moment. But, you know, they can still say, hey, I'm an NFL player. I made it to my dream. I made it to that next level. So props and congratulations to all of them, and best of luck. And to as long as steady and hopeful career as possible.
Yep, that's true. Absolutely. Now to college basketball, just a couple notes. Guard Franz Wagner is going to stay at U of M for a sophomore season. There was some speculation that he might consider entering the NBA draft, but he changed his mind. I guess he changed his mind. Franz Wagner, staying at.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That is a positive thing to see if you're Michigan in terms of in regards to recruits leaving or decommitting and other players leaving. you needed a player like Wagner to stay, so that's a good thing. Have you heard anything in regards to Isaiah Livers making his decision?
I believe he was, he entered the NBA draft, I believe. That's the last I remember.
Okay, so he's officially entering and staying in the draft.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
As far as I can at least try to remember, yeah. So Colin Castleton, the center, has transferred to Florida, so Wolverines will have to look for a new center, probably by recruiting. So that's it. That's all I have for Michigan Wolverines men's basketball. And switching, going back to the Red Wings here, they signed a couple of youngsters from other hockey leagues. Signed free agent forward Matthias Blom to a 1-year, 2-way contract, and goaltender Victor Brattstrom to a 2-year deal, probably an entry level deal. So not very much big going on with the Red Wings, except they're sourcing sanitation devices in terms of the coronavirus. So that's it for the Red Wings. Got about 13 and change minutes left in this episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on the Staples Network. Let's go ahead and get to that TMSTP Story Vault segment, shall we?
No problem.
Jeff Marks of the Detroit Sports Rag headlines, quote, "Ausmus fired when it doesn't matter any longer," unquote. From September 22nd of 2017, he writes, "You will get no celebration from me now that the Detroit Tigers have finally parted ways with their Mimbo imbecile manager Brad Ausmus. I am not going to give Al Avila credit for doing something Dave Dombrowski should have done 1,083 years ago. On October 5th, 2014, that's the date the dope from Dartmouth should have been handed his walking papers. The day the franchise was inexplicably swept by the Baltimore Orioles in the American League Division Series. An organization, mind you, that boasted a starting rotation of Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, David Price, and future Cy Young winner Rick Porcello, also Anibal Sanchez included. An organization that was built to win right then and there hired a surfer dude with zero experience and basically no managerial ethos whatsoever. And the results were disturbing from almost day one. Moss believes that was his first article warning all of us people about Ausmus. Ausmus's bad Jim Leyland imitation was in July of his rookie year. From Moss's first article on Brad Ausmus, "The Tigers' Real Problem, Brad Ausmus," from July 25th, 2014. He said, there was a chunk of that article that says, "Look, I am not worried about the Tigers roster at this point. I think the bullpen will be fine. I don't even think Dombrowski needs to add another lefty reliever. I'm also not of the opinion that they need to acquire a left-handed bat before the deadline. Hopefully Andy Dirks will return at some point and add another option in the outfield. Finally, I am convinced that Eugenio Suarez is more than competent at shortstop, especially considering whom the team had penciled in to play that position anyway. My biggest fear regarding the 2014 Tigers season is Pateo Lapka Wheeland. The events of this past week have only heightened that anxiety." That's the chunk of the article. That chunk of that article, "The Tigers' Real Problem, Brad Ausmus." Now, back to the article at hand in our segment here. From Jump Street, Ausmus was basically a better-looking version of Leland, from his stubborn bullpen usage to batting Don Kelly fifth in the lineup to inserting losers second in the batting order, who would then get DFA'd a week later. Ausmus made two critical errors in 2014 when he had that loaded squad, including a Willy Wonka golden ticket by the name of J.D. Martinez. The first was his handling of Joakim Soria, whom the Tigers acquired at the deadline to solidify their perennially awful bullpen. From the Dombrowski and Tate obtained Soria for two of the organization's top 5 prospects, Jake Thompson and Cole. Ausmus was reversed to using Joakim Soria in high leverage situations. The sarcastic, condescending prick was under the impression that Joe Nathan and Jabba Chamberlain were better late-inning options than a dude having a career year and whom his own GM mortgaged the future to acquire. The other nonsensical error Ausmus made that season was his absolute refusal to utilize James McCann as his backup catcher in the postseason. Ausmus was the last person on it to realize that Alex Avila was a perfect platoon catcher who had no business hitting against lefties, while McCann had crushed left-handed pitchers in the minors that season and during a short stint in Detroit. Ausmus's usage of Soria in the last week of the season was an abomination, and the reliever entered that Baltimore series ill-prepared to deal with Baltimore's lethal bats. And don't even get me started on how Ausmus treated Anibal Sanchez with kid gloves out of the pen in that series. I mean, imagine if Ausmus and the Tigers didn't baby Anibal coming off that injury. He might really have been missed in the late innings of those games against a couple of southpaw relievers who you may have heard of, Andrew Miller and Zach Britton. Andrew Miller, one of those Tiger stars that the Tigers once had in 2006. You remember that, Ed? Yep.
Don't remind me of that pain.
Yeah. Tigers would end up with only one World Series one World Series win in that 4-1 drubbing to the St. Louis Cardinals in that World Series. Ugh. Continuing on here, after getting swept by those Orioles, by an inferior Orioles team in 2014, that was the time for the Tigers to cut bait with Ausmus. He was clearly in over his head and not up for the gig. But it didn't happen then, and only after this team's window slammed shut this summer, with the next few years looking as bleak as ever, did Avila finally pull the plug. And please stop with this revisionist history that the team's beat writers are spewing. You think Ausmus was handed the Randy Smith era Tigers in 1997 or some stuff based on the narrative spun by these dotards. In the 4 years of managing this team, Ausmus was provided with an average opening day payroll of $177 million. And we've experienced those payrolls like 2 or 3 weeks ago in our Story Vault segment. And this team, Ausmus was, and yet who cares about that he got axed now? This team stinks, and the organization is going to be very, very bad for the foreseeable future. Seriously, let's take a look at what the 2018 Tigers might look like. At catcher, James McCann, Miguel Cabrera at first base, second baseman, Dixon Machado, shortstop, Jose Iglesias. He was cut after 2018. Thank you very much. First baseman, Jeimer Candelario, left fielder, Alex Presley or Kristen Stewart, center fielder, Mikey Matuk. He sucks. Right fielder, Nick Castellanos, who got traded to the Cubs either in 2018 or 2019. And finally, Victor Martinez at DH or John Hicks. And the starting pitchers, Michael Fuller, Matt Boyd, Jordan Zimmerman, Daniel Norris, and I believe I'm guessing Kyle Carpenter. I'm also guessing hilariously Paws, Heather Park, or the singing hot dog guy. Bullpen, oh, for God's sake, don't even make me list those losers. I mean, that's a bad team. Your best offensive player probably has chronic back issues. Well, Miguel Cabrera, and may or may not have fallen off the wagon, and your only good pitcher is coming off an elbow surgery. That's Michael Fulmer. I like Candelario as much as the next Jaime, Jesse Jackson, but that team could be nearly as bad as the 2003 Tigers, 2003, when they lost 119 games. Last year, they lost, may I add, they lost 114, which is 5 years short, 5 games short, 5 losses short. So, I go on and on and on, but Ed, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, obviously, in terms of this article, that was not only in terms of mentioning and backing up previous articles that were mentioned about the Ausmus tenure. It was not only a self-correct prediction, of so to speak, it was also almost a harbinger of how awful and pathetic and dreadful this team would become. The roster that it was shaped into, the fire sales that would transpire. And also, you notice some of those names on that list, they will go on to have success with other teams after leaving Detroit. Notably, JD Martinez winning the World Series in 2018.
Yep. Yeah, that with the JD Martinez 2018, the Boston Red Sox, also David Price. Yeah, he's a guy that Ausmus had on the Tigers roster as a starting pitcher. He's won the World Series in 2018 with the Red Sox as well as JD Martinez.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The Tigers were going to lose close to 100 games this season. They played half the year with Justin Verlander, Justin Wilson, and a rejuvenated Alex Avila. But now they fired Ausmus 3 years too late. And now they have they brought another old manager that out of retirement, Ron Gardenhire by name. Yeah, I mean, some may say it's not his fault for those awful seasons that he had in 2018 and 2019. But for goodness sake, oh man, even he wasn't helping either.
He may not put the roster together, but it's still his decisions to put those players on the field in those spots at the end of the day.
Yeah, and those people, those fans that coddle Ron Gardenhire so much are missing just that point right there. It's just that things never change with this positivity, slappiness of that type of fan base. First, they're the slappies, then there are what your name tree calls the Yinzers, unless it's only in Pittsburgh or something like that. But anyway, the analytics nerds, and then the conspiracy theorists. I mean, I believe that's all those four sects that I have come up with. Thank you, urinating tree. Shout out goes to you. Got less than 3 minutes left. We got 2 and change minutes left. Why don't we go to the closing statement? That was our CMSTP story football segment. Ed, I'll give you 1 minute. Closing statement. Go.
Well, the closing statement I would like to offer is that knowing that everything was on the line, I felt that Bob Quinn did, without coming off as too desperate, did necessary amounts, did the necessary moves to give him a fighting chance to keep his job. Whether or not it will work out, that remains to be seen. But I still think and believe that what the effort that was done over the last week in terms of building up the roster, filling up key spots and needs, and making the general outlook a bit more optimistic for how the season could go was one aspect that they were able to accomplish. I think in general, yes, you could argue it is the Stockholm Syndrome portion of the fan base that keeps lathering themselves up every year by year. But I still think at the end of the day, Bob Quinn did an adequate job at this draft. And again, all that's left to see is what's on the field.
Yep. So my closing statement, the Lions did what they had to do. They took the best players available, and sure they could have filled defensive linemen earlier, but those picks, like in the first 4 rounds, again, were just too good to pass up. And that's what Lions fans keep on missing, including Jeff Okudah and others, DeAndre Swift and Julian Okwara. Those are the things that people need to keep in mind. The best player available. That's the main point of the NFL draft. Ed, we'll talk to you next week. Frank Vazner, at least hopefully, will return.
All right. Take care, Taylor. Stay safe.
All right. If there's any local, state, or national business that is interested in sponsoring the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on the Stables Network, please contact the network executive producer, Mark Mancini, by email at mancinisports@yahoo.com or our operations producer, Breck Smith, at breck@thestablesnetwork.com. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Ed Smith on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at EdSmith313. And follow us at Michigan_Truth on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram. Like our 2 Facebook pages, one at Michigan Sports Truth and the other by the Stables Network. And like the Stables Network's Facebook pages and follow it on Twitter at Stables Network and on Instagram at the Stables Network. Stay tuned for the Paradigm Shift coming up next on the Stables Network. Until then, our next episode Wednesday at 10 p.m. Until then, thanks very much for downloading and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Bon appetit. Hail with the hind, we rest our case. Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah.
Choo-choo. 2 minutes. We
Who's
ready
playing?
to do this?
Who's turning on the song?
Brett got
Okay.
that.
Okay,
Okay. We ready to do this in 2 minutes, guys?
I'm ready.
Ready. Well, let's do our good luck thing as we get ready to do this in public, if you will.
Stupid.
Say it, Will. Say it, Will.
If you will,
If
let's
you
do this in
will.
public.
If you will.
If you
Oh.
will.
So I've been thinking we need to do an episode on managers.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that too. Matter of fact,
I was watching one that I think is really undersold. TNA, Abyss's manager.
Oh,
yeah.
James Vanderbeek, the sinister minister.
Yes. Yes.
I think he is on the level of Paul Bearer in.
Absolutely. Here we go.
I think he's getting it ready. We still got a minute.
Still got a minute or so.
Yeah,
I
I'm
would,
just getting things ready. We're
I would
up
love
also-
on a minute. I'll
I would-
play my intro, then I'll play y'all's video, and when the video's done, it'll stop, and y'all can just go for it.
All
Okay.
right.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good show, my friend.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a great show too.
Thank you. The other thing, I don't know if you would say he was underrated, but I love Slick.
Oh,
yes.
I love Slick. Oh my
Dr.
goodness.
Style.
Dr. Style Slick.
Yes.
See,
My
now you got me
brother.
on something else. Real quick, we got like 30 seconds. Did Sting going to TNA diminish his career? or did it make it better?
No.
Made it better.
Yeah.
It made it better because it showed he could truly be a leader someplace else.
In a locker room, yeah.
Exactly.
And not be a toxic locker room.
You know, it's another topic. You know, it's another topic we got to think of sometime.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're live on the Stables Network. Dang.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of the Paradigm Shift Wrestling Podcast. I am your moderator, Mr. William D. Morgan. I have three gentlemen surrounding me tonight. First, let me bring in my boy Josh. Josh, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good, Will. How are you tonight, man?
Doing pretty good. Next, let me bring in my main man, Mean Gene, up in the house. Mean Gene, what's up?
How's it going? I am ready for tonight. It's going to be an eventful evening.
And then next, last but certainly not least, fuck it like a bucket. I'm gonna bring it in. My main man, Rob. Rob, what's up, man?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paradigm Shift as we bridge reality and fantasy in the wrestling world. Get ready to have your paradigm shifted.
Wow. All right. First thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna roll over to my man Rob. He's gonna bring over some news. We're gonna discuss, and then we're gonna move on with the rest of this fine broadcast this evening. Josh, take it away.
All right, man. So the first thing I got tonight is Dutch Mantle dropped a huge rumor on the wrestling community yesterday. Like, if it's true, this is like the Titanic of wrestling rumors. Vince McMahon in talks with ESPN or Fox to sell the WWE and the network. I got to get y'all's opinions. True or false? What do y'all think? And I'm going to disclaimer this right now. If you are not a true wrestling fan, if you don't know Dutch Mantle, who was Zeb Coulter in the WWE, take everything Dutch Mantle says with about 50 grains of salt.
Yeah,
like it could be true, it could be wrong, it could be a mishmash of a bunch of different rumors put into one rumor. So you just got to go with what you see. Rob, I want to get your opinion first, sir. What do you think?
Never, ever gonna happen. Never gonna happen.
Oh my goodness.
There is no way. This has been the family business for 4 generations now with Stephanie in the mix. There is no way that Vince McMahon is going to sell the WWE. They may get like a minority ownership if anything, but no, Vince will not sell the WWE at all.
That's Vincent's brainchild. It will never go away from Vince McMahon nor the McMahon family. And Dutch Mantel is again one of those guys where you take everything with a grain of salt. It's 50% this way, 50% that way. So it, as other places have said, and we will probably say, it's a rumor more than it is actual fact.
And yeah, I mean, you're right. You're not wrong. Like I said, but Dutch has broken some big truths before, so like, it's possible.
What?
I'm gonna play. I couldn't tell you anything right off the top of my head, but people listen to him, so he's probably broken something or someone.
But I'm gonna play devil's advocate
at the bar, but that's about it.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a quick second.
I was about to do the same thing, Will.
Vince has had a bad year thus far, and this may be a way from him to finally get some peace. The XFL suffered WWE has suffered,
Last
lost
year.
money because of COVID-19. So
Well, and-
if you look at the amount of money he lost, the cutbacks he had to do, the criticism that he had to take, that might be enough for Vince to say, "I'm done." I doubt if it happens, and even if it does happen, I don't think he would lose control. I think he'll still have some type of control over it, even if he sells. Like it was brought up earlier, maybe a minority stake, but I don't think it happens either because this is what his father started, and he's carried on and improved from there. He's going to want it for Stephanie. He's going to want it for Shane. Triple H has a stake, so I don't think it's going to happen. But if it does, the writing is on the wall.
Will's reading my mind right here because that was the exact direction I was going to go. The only thing I will say on top of that is last year was one of WWE's worst years in 20 years.
Yep.
All their merchandise sales went down. The video game tanked. It was the worst game they probably ever produced, to the point they're not releasing one this year.
Nope.
2K is no more with the video games. So I agree with all you guys. I never ever thought we'd ever be having this discussion of Vince selling WWE, because Vince loves WWE more than he loves his own kids. And it's not just a wrestling company anymore. You can drop the sports. It's an entertainment company. They make multi-million-dollar movies that have nothing to do with wrestling
right
now. And so they are so much bigger than just wrestling. And so maybe that's it. Maybe he's just looking to sell a portion of it. I don't know.
I'm going to say this. This would be, and I know deep down in Vince's head, this is also another thing. He loves looking at tragedy or looking at when he's at hardships and seeing what best comes out of his business. And that would be his thing right now. He'd be looking at them and saying, okay, who's going to pick up their socks and who's going to come out of this with the keys to pretty much the kingdom. So I don't see him. He revels in these situations. When they lost for 84, consecutive weeks against WCW, they could have packed up ship and said, you know what, I'll just sell it and go home. But no, they fought to the bitter end and they came out the winner. This is a Vince thing. This is what he does. When he's at the worst, he pulls out the best. So I don't see that happening.
So I tend to agree, but I also can see on Will's end too, where Vince he's just come to that point. But I don't see Triple H and Stephanie letting Vince sell after they've worked so hard to get where they're at with this company. Triple H has put so much into NXT. Stephanie's put so much into their charitable side and being like we were discussing before the show. If Triple H and Stephanie were to take over, I don't think much would change. Triple H would step into Vince's role. Stephanie would stay the face of the company, and it would basically, to the casual fan, everybody would think Triple H is running it, but to us, we would know that it's the two of them. And I think that's probably it. Next bit of news. Mr. Briscoe let go from WWE after 30 years. I got to get some thoughts on this. I'm going to go to Will first on this, because he's the one I haven't heard from on this yet.
It's just a damn shame when you release someone who gave you over 20 years of loyalty. And it's just a damn shame you released them. Man, it's just terrible. And you hate to see it, because from what my understanding was, he's done nothing wrong to be released.
He was released on April 15th, just with the other group too, just because of budget cuts.
Yeah, he didn't do anything wrong. But
I gotta go to Rob, because Rob had a good point on this before the show. Rob, was it time?
It might have been time, but he's come out on Twitter, and I just looked it up. He's come